Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't.
Does anybody need an agenda?
An agenda, yes, please.
Yeah.
I printed out the other thing.
And the memorandum, I don't know if you guys printed this out.
I have the
That one I have for making reference. It's easy to get obnoxious behind the keyboard.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you.
Give you the minutes.
Whoops, you know what? I printed the wrong agenda. I'm sorry. I just realized I printed last week's agenda, the last time.
Oh, all right, so just ignore this.
Sorry about that.
It's okay, I'll take the month back. Just a couple extra weeks.
But we're generally going to follow the same order.
Yeah.
So the first up is the minutes from 10:27.
You need someone to
27.
make a motion?
I was not at this meeting. The one where the I missed.
I think you missed the one before that.
Second, did I take that class?
Oh, on the 27th, yeah. you
Oh,
missed it.
okay.
Yep, she missed it, sorry.
Try to be two places at once.
So you need someone to make a motion? to-
Yes, we do.
Okay.
Is Rick on there? So?
No.
Well, Rick is usually Wednesday. Yeah.
Okay.
So
I
it's just
know it's like your day, but you can change your days. So,
Oh. Want me to get?
make someone know he's not gonna be here with the snow.
Are there any other edits to the minutes or is it just that one correction?
If somebody want me to make a motion, making a motion to approve minutes?
Yes, please.
Okay, so I make a motion to approve minutes. Anybody want to second it?
You could, but I wasn't there.
I
All
know.
right, Ethan, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so I think second item. Oh, I brought the wrong agenda. I think the second.
It's the
item-
discussion of the survey results, so
So Sachi, do you want to leave that?
sure. And I'm wondering if I can share my screen. I did say that the report was draft and confidential, primarily because I wanted the CPC to have an opportunity to review it before it was made public. And I'm happy to take your lead on whether you would like me to go in detail in discussing these findings or just an overview of what all we've included here and some high-level findings.
I think you should be able to share your screen.
Sorry, I didn't hear that.
I went through it already, so I don't.
You can share your screen. You're a panelist. You should be able to.
Here we go. Can you see my screen?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, so so this summarizes the community outreach from September to November, the 3rd of November, 2021. The way we've organized the report is, to kind of highlight the purpose of what this, what exactly the community outreach is intended to do. And at a very high level, it's, meant to help develop a people-centric vision for the future of Orangetown and to identify the priorities in the near term, as well as in the long term. We've provided an overview of all of the engagement channels that we employed to collect feedback, including the community survey, vision wall, tag a photo, as well as the public workshop. And the way the report is organized is that we've discussed the findings from each of these, the first 3 actually in this report, and the findings from the public workshop, the summary of that was already provided to you by AKRF. Going into the details, we also included some information about the outreach promotion. The purpose of including this information really was that this document would become a part of the comprehensive plan, and it would be I guess important for us to document the process that was employed. So we also, went ahead and described the promotion outlets, and that we've made efforts in trying to reach as many people as possible. So just to give you an overview of the key findings from the community survey, before we closed the survey, we had a total of 1,097 responses by the 3rd of November. And the average time that people spent on these, on the whole survey was a little, 15 to 16 minutes. The rate of completion was 67%, but that is because a lot of people did not provide their emails or have any additional comments at the end, or they did not, want to go. The last few questions are questions that people kind of left out. And with each response, we've provided the, with each question, we've provided the response rate. So you'll see that, in the beginning, it's almost up to 100, and then it gradually kind of goes down with the email, provide your email, and additional feedback as being the least, participated. So targeted questions received the most feedback. Targeted and short questions received the most feedback. Another thing that we noticed, because we kind of analyzed this, over like when were the maximum number of responses that we received. So each time that an email went out reminding people of the and providing a link, those were the days that the survey participation was the highest. And in between the 2 emails or the email blast, the participation was really low. I haven't included a graph here for it because it was complex, but this is something that, we just observed, that for all of the 3 platforms, within 2 days of respondents receiving the information, the participation has been the highest, especially if it's been the weekend. And weekday participation has been kind of a little less. Based on the key findings from the community survey, we, and each question has, we've provided a conclusion for each question or more. And one of the things that we've gone ahead and done is taken the, feedback from this survey as well as the other platforms and sent our input onto in the comprehensive plan goals. So you'll notice today as we go over it that those goals have been significantly, updated to include more specificity about action items, because these came directly from the responses that people provided in each of the questions. Without going into too much detail and in the interest of time, I think some of the most, I'll say that the participation from people in Pearl River was actually the highest participation, over 35%. And it's great to hear that most of the people have been living here, like over 65% of the people are long-term residents. And if we include over 5 years also as long-term residents, then, you know, over like 85% of the people, almost 85% of the people are actually long-term residents of town of Orangetown. And they fall in the brackets. Majority of them fall in the bracket of 35 to 75. So, you know, pretty active in the workforce during that time. And 8.7% of the respondents were, you know, sort of over the age of 75. The other thing was that in terms of commute, a very high percentage of the people who participated in the survey actually, you know, majority, I would say like 35% were actually either retired or not employed or a student. So that is a high percentage of people, you know, who are not actively participating in the workforce. And 25% of the respondents work outside of Rockland County, but inside New York State. You know, so and 18.5% of them work within the town of Orangetown. So these are the people who are not traveling too much to get to their workplaces. There is a small percentage that it travels quite far to get to their workplaces, and that's about 11.3%. Because they work outside of Rockland County, but also outside of New York State. So likely 11.3%, you know, or 11% of the workers are travel very long distances, and 36%, you know, travel shorter distances. So we'll also see later that this is kind of also factored into the idea that some people are, you know, wanting to have better public transportation, not only within the town of Orangetown, but also connectivity to other places. You know, unanimously, a very high percent top reasons that people choose to live in Orangetown, and this also happens to coincide with what people would actually like to see a lot more of in Orangetown, is the sense of community, the school districts, and you know, community character, which I also kind of characterize as just the scale of development, the ability to, you know, the landscape, the you know, single family home landscape that there is, but also that there are smaller pockets of kind of activity, walkability. So a lot of people have, you know, responded as that to be one of the main reasons to live in town of Orangetown. And of course, closely following that are also the community facilities where people do really like the parks and open spaces, and the natural beauty of the town.
I think if we want to jump to the later section where because I think we went over a lot of these questions at our last meeting, and the responses haven't shifted that much.
The responses haven't shifted as much, even with more, you know, more feedback. So
jumping to
even with, sorry, go ahead, Ashley.
So jumping to like the tag a photo and some of the more where we did get.
Oh, sure, absolutely, yes, sure. And again, you know, just to kind of wrap up, the people still feel like the hamlets don't need as much development, but then if we go to tag a photo and the vision wall, there are a lot of people who do think that, you know, some development might be not a bad idea, but what is the nature and how that enhances their experience, we'll discuss that. So the tag a photo had a total of 461 visits. Now these are not unique visits. The unique visits are 146 users. And we received 125 unique comments from 146 users. And again, this is the graph that shows that each time the email went out, we got the maximum number of responses. So people were asked to kind of provide, feedback on what priority they have, what they don't like, and what they like. Over 80% of the people kind of had their responses within a priority that they have, and what is it that they actually like, and what is that they actually don't like or would like to see change. There are only about 16% of the people who were, complimentary about things in Orangetown. So we went ahead and created these heat maps to analyze. Because the purpose of this was to really understand what are the geographies or places where people really do have maximum number of responses, or as well as categorize it by which are the areas that are most problematic and which are the areas that people are thinking they want to see most change. So this is a composite where Pearl River, Orangeburg, and the I-340 and Oak Tree Road are the places where people had the maximum sort of concerns, as well as things that they like, or the changes that they would like to see. You see a little circle over here in Sparkle, but that is also the continuation of I-340. And all the comments related here also are with regards to that interstate. Orangeburg is really the place, this geographic area, which is kind of like a top priority for improvement, and the top areas of concern. And again, and most of the questions are with most of the feedback has been with regards to traffic, transportation, but also the the right of way and how it can be organized, and what type of uses people would like to see around there. They just, want to have a better experience of Route 303 and 340, and they see it as important, but it's, unsafe, too much noise, speeding cars, and the uses around this interstate are kind of not, what they would like it to be. So they can't really engage with this place, but there is an interest to engage with it, and as a priority improve like traffic and the uses. And I mean, if I may say so, it wasn't said that directly, but I think they're like a form-based code or some type of guideline as to how it should be developed. And then the top areas of concern were Pearl River and Orangeburg. Now they have two very different types of concern. In Orangeburg, the concern is really around the overdevelopment of storage facilities and truck traffic, which is kind of causing a congestion, and also that the historic buildings, whether they are in Orangeburg or in other places, are suffering because of that, because there isn't kind of, a proper code or proper provision for these historic buildings to be preserved. And so, that's one of the major concerns in Orangeburg. In Pearl River neighborhood, the concerns are different. It is more with regards to a sense of place, urban design elements, streetscaping, as well as, enhancing the experience of these hamlets, of, the area where people go and shop. And while Pearl River is a priority, people have actually also called out other places in Orangetown where they want to see similar improvements. And I think the idea, what I was concluding from analyzing this response is that they'd like to see kind of these walkable pockets where they can and not really have an over densification of these places, but still have more human scale multi-story, 2 to 3 story development, which is more walkable, safe, and also, has activities, cultural activities or retail activities and entertainment activities that people can participate in here. So, these are the sort of 3 3 major areas. In the end, I also have a map over here, which are kind of like the most desirable places within town, and Piermont, Sparkill, and Pearl River are the most desirable places in town where people have given the most positive responses. So this was really helpful in us kind of deducing geographic priorities and tying them to what exactly those priorities should be in these geographic locations. And we can use this now to delve deeper into what kind of regulatory design recommendations we come up with in coordination with the community. And then the vision wall was also analyzing, the vision wall had a total of 1,387 visits. Almost everyone, well, a very high percentage of the people who participated in tag a photo attached a photo. So I'm assuming that people thought that for tag a photo, they had to have a photo to participate in it, but that was not true. And we should have made that clear. But the vision wall had, 318 unique visitors. So that's almost, I would say, I think double. Almost double of what the tag a photo exercise was. And the total comments received were 185. We asked for comments in community facilities, housing, land use, sustainability, and transportation and mobility. And they, everyone, it was more or less equal distribution. However, people seem to be a little bit more satisfied with the housing situation and the community facilities in the town. So sustainability, I would say it was sustainability and transportation and mobility were by far the more popular ones. And it is very interesting to me also because sustainability is really a top priority for people, for the community of Orangetown. And it is clear both in tag a photo, in the survey, and in the vision wall. But one observation that I had was that in the town official survey, that was lesser of a priority. Much less compared to, there weren't as many concerns about wetlands and or any, sort of natural resource encroachment for new development. So what we've gone ahead and done is we've taken the top responses on vision wall and summarized them here. Air quality in sustainability. And I know land use, here it says that the second comment is land use, but again, it is, speaks to the air quality and how the neighborhoods, are going to suffer and have lower quality of life because of the, because of 303 becoming an increasing truck, having a lot of trucks and development that is more of storage facilities around that. In general, people have spoken about transportation and mobility with and asked for greater pedestrian as well as bike paths around the town of Orangetown. Now, these don't necessarily have to be dedicated bike lanes, but they could be incorporated within the right of way. So it could be like shared bike paths or dedicated where there is space. Point number 3, where this again kind of is related to the number of people actually commuting outside of Orangetown. About it's a total of around 25% of the people, with 11% outside of Orangetown and New York State, and the rest right outside of Rockland County. They've asked, people have expressed as a top priority that there needs to be greater reliability on rail transportation. And all of the express trains from Pearl River sort of never came back. So, they need more express trains so they can live here, continue to live here and work in, at their respective places. So this has a lot more detail, and I kind of don't want to go, I can keep going on and on with but we're already at the 30-minute mark. So I want to stop here and invite any questions that you may have with regards to these findings, not just today, but even, when you've had a chance to review it. Over email, also very welcome.
I have two questions, and I apologize if you already explained this, but can you describe what is a unique user?
Sure. So we were, is it okay if I stop sharing my screen? Does everyone have a copy?
Yep.
Okay, so we were tracking the IP address from which the survey was taken. And so that is why I believe that there was a problem where someone reported that I've taken the survey and somebody else cannot take the survey on the same computer, because we weren't allowing the same IP address to provide two inputs, because we did not want to encroach into people's privacy and have the email be mandatory. So the only way to keep the responses fair and get people to respond only once was to track IP addresses. So each unique user means one IP address.
Okay, so my second question would be, based on the number of participants in comparison to our actual population for the town of Orangetown, is this a good turnout? Or is this something that, in your experience is typical? It seems rather low.
Right, I think that it is a pretty good turn. So I would say that it's a very good turnout for the survey.
Yeah.
And it is a decent, much better than what we get at a lot of places. We had 3% when we were doing the Mount Kisco, the comp plan for the town of Mount Kisco. And I think another place was, and that's a city, Hoboken and Jersey City are cities. So I was just looking at comparable places. So yeah, we had 3% response there. So here we have, based on the households, I think last time we calculated about 14% response, the survey. So it's really good.
It's based on households, not actual population.
If you take it like actual population, even then it was around 10%. So, and I could quickly calculate it, right? 7% or so, and I could calculate it right here. Could you remind me the population again?
We're just a hair under 50,000.
Yeah.
49,956 or something like that.
Did you say about 50,000?
Yes.
Yeah, just under 50,000 residents.
And then we had like 1,000 responses, right? So 2%.
So that's about 2% with the population. But usually within a household, we have not everyone from the family participating in the survey. It's like one person from the family or, 2 people from the family participating in the survey. So I think we would probably, and that's why we did it by households the last time. And I think it was 14,000 households, am I correct? 14 or 15,000 households?
Did the villages participate in this?
Yes.
Yeah, I was actually impressed to see that there was comments from, they gave the numbers there, and basically every hamlet, every village had some representation.
Yes, and I can pull it up. The villages had didn't have as much of I'll just pull it up.
It was South Nyack.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, one of the reasons I asked the question is because a lot of the responses are typical of what we hear at the land use board hearings.
Right.
And it's typically the same people.
Right.
Same.
And-
So, from where I sit, I'm thinking I really would have loved to have heard from people who aren't going to these meetings and what they feel about these topics too.
But I had this conversation with Allison. I mean, that's the reality of who you're gonna get.
Right,
People who are involved are gonna
unfortunately.
be involved. And so we're gonna have more outreach, but if people are not involved, you can't make them.
Yeah, that's why I was
said the
wondering
same
if it's
thing. I said,
typical.
Yeah,
if it's
that is
typical.
an issue we run into in a lot of communities where you get the usual
Right.
suspects that respond. We could, if you wanted to do some targeted outreach to the school districts, to get a younger population involved.
For me, what I found, like, so there was the one question that says 55.1% thought that the quality of life in Orangetown has declined, which I was shocked at that number, right? But then you go on to read the reasons and what they think they need to be done. So right off, they say overdevelopment, which cracks me up because we are so not overdeveloped compared to other towns, right? So they say overdevelopment, the nature of development has brought greater traffic noise, higher taxes. I don't know where the higher taxes comes from, but whatever.
Yeah, that's actually recurring higher taxes.
Right, the existing urban fabric and scale and use that do not always align with the needs of existing residents. Okay, then you go on and it says, and the taxes are increasing, which again is why you're bringing in, some of the development. And that we need possible measures that can offset higher property tax are not being taken by the town, which I hope they know the difference between town and school, but issues of equity and access to affordable housing. Now, you can't have it both ways. You can't say,
Exactly.
don't want development, but we want access to affordable housing, so I don't know how you reconcile some of these things. I think where you see it, I guess, perfectly is the map where that shows what is the best parts of town, and it's Pearl River, and which are here we go. Top priorities for improvement, and you have Pearl River, top areas of Pearl River, and the top areas that are desirable within town, Pearl River. So it's like you have two different groups out there
All right,
that
and
seem
most
to
of the
be totally
respondents
different.
were, you think about it, they had
That seems just completely different. So anyway, I guess that's why we have you guys, the experts, to figure out how you reconcile those.
Yeah, so I guess that's a good segue into the goals discussion where you.
I think, right, I think, and one, if I may say so, I think this is not actually new, Teresa, this is very common. And I did mention that 35% of the respondents said they lived in Pearl River. So that is a very high number of, people from that area. But I also, one of the things, and like Ashley said, is a good segue into the goals. We felt as if people don't want too much of it. And I think storage and warehouses was, storage, warehouses, and truck traffic that came up again and again is what is people's vision of overdevelopment. That's what they think, in my opinion, is what is overdevelopment. And they've specifically said it's this. I think people are open to providing housing opportunities for the younger population under 35. And the only way that that can be achieved is if there are housing typologies that are potentially smaller in size and that are cheaper. And are like starter homes for young families. So that's something that we thought would be something that would take into account both sort of not overdevelopment and keeping the scale and the sense of community and character of Orangetown, but at the same time inviting and not excluding populations who are obviously not, making $500,000 a year or, be able to afford single family homes.
One of the issues with that is the areas that were set up to be starter homes have been forever homes. And people have stayed in them, they haven't left. And they've renovated and added to them. So the areas, like the part of Concord in that area of Tappan, you have some areas of Pearl River where they were just
Small
one level
right.
Cape Cods, and they're no longer like that. So there really isn't an area of town that I would say are starter homes anymore. It doesn't exist. There's very few of them left.
So one of the themes that we hear a lot one of the trends in planning today is the missing middle housing. And that's the transition between your hamlet center, where you may have a little bit higher density townhouse units or multifamily, And then you have the missing middle, which are the duplexes and triplexes and smaller homes, or maybe like having an accessory dwelling unit on a lot with a single family home. And that being the transitional area between the larger single family lots.
See, I know you said it last time too, and I don't think, I don't know, I don't like the concept to begin with, but
Okay.
I don't know that that's what it is. I mean, and again, maybe this is just because I'm at a point where I have a 25-year-old and a almost 27-year-old that are looking to go out. They don't want to go live in somebody's accessory apartment. They don't want to live in somebody's backyard. They don't want to live in anybody's basement. They want to have a little condo or, rental and not have to live there. And there's just nothing, and it's not just them. It's like I said, my friends, my age, are selling their homes and they can't stay in the town. They're going to the James and Park Ridge and they're going to New City and they're going whatever. There's no place for people to stay and either rent or buy. That's,
Reasonable.
that's like even a small condo complex. You have the hollows, over 55. Everything's over 55.
And very expensive.
And very expensive. So I don't, again, when you talk about transit development, people go crazy. I think they look at the park. If you go to Park Ridge in New Jersey, right over here, what they built in their transit development is horrifying to me. I think it's horrifying. It's I don't even know how many units are in that thing. It just keeps going and going and going.
Okay.
And that's what people think, and they get freaked out. So there's something in between that. And
And that was a concern when the Grover downtown
right.
revitalization.
They were looking at that and saying, holy
There's
crap.
a lot of people against it because they didn't want it.
They
to
put
look
up a
like-
big parking garage. It's overwhelming. It's overwhelming. That's what I think is the one they're heading. What's gonna happen in Florida. But it's my 2 cents.
I mean, one of the things sometimes that there is sometimes a mismatch between people's desires and the market realities. And it just kind of takes time to kind of catch up. There is definitely a demand and a desire that people have expressed for senior housing, affordable, housing that is senior housing, as well as definitely a demand for affordable housing, that missing middle that Ashley was talking about. So I'm wondering if we could look into typologies or examples from other places that are that could be possibilities in town of Orangetown. And if we put this out and ask people to provide a yay or nay, and then ask them to figure out, well, what locations or what general areas do you think that this type of low scale, affordable housing typologies would be possible, or could be accommodated in the town for, what we've heard at the next meeting.
Good luck.
Well, we could go, I mean, in Westchester has a lot of good examples.
I was just
of-
saying up in Suffolk, up in the village of Suffolk, they did it on the trip, railroad track. It's, it's not overwhelming,
Yeah.
it's whatever, I think it all comes down to the size and scale.
Right, and that's where the form-based code could come in and help sort of frame the box and then what you can fit within that box. And then also town will be open to an inclusionary zoning provision, like a 10% set aside for affordable housing is pretty standard in other communities in the region.
So what you're saying is we could do another type of poll to see where people would like to see these things?
We could work that into the next workshop.
Yes, and we have a run of the show for the next workshop, so I can walk you through it. And we could try and have specificity regarding housing, these questions about housing at the next workshop. But again, I see some smiles from a distance, so I'll wait.
It's just funny because we have some particular hamlets, when you ask them, they want to tell you where it should be, but guess what? It's never their hamlet. It should be on Middletown Road and Pearl River. We actually had somebody say that to us. The multifamily housing should be on Middletown Road and Pearl River. They didn't even just say Pearl River. They told us where in Pearl River. I won't tell you what happened. That was from.
When is the next workshop?
So,
6th?
yeah, so we have them scheduled for the 6th and the 7th. The 6th being the in-person and the 7th being virtual. I have a hard stop at 8 o'clock on the 6th. So I don't know, we were expecting it to go about an hour, but what time we have it scheduled? Starting at 7.
7.
Question?
She just has.
Okay.
Meeting.
Okay.
Did you want me to go over the run of show for the next workshop?
Yeah, please.
Yep.
Okay. So I'll share my screen again and just a second. So I think we could begin a little early, 6:30, 6:45, like we could be settled, we could be done and provide people the opportunity to settle in. The way I've provided the in-person engagement and run of show is for an in-person meeting. So it has a little bit more detail than you would have if it was offline and sorry, if it was online. So a 2-minute introduction by Teresa from 7 to 7:02, just introducing the consultant team, and then a few minutes, 3 minutes, sorry, this is a typo, it should be 7:02. 3 minutes presentation by Ashley, giving an overview of the comprehensive plan team process and where we are in the process, similar to what we had the last time. And then I'll begin the community workshop, summarizing what we've heard very briefly and key findings so that people understand that we're building the next level, the next exercises based on the findings directly from these other platforms that we hosted between September and November. And the two main exercises that we're going to do is, and after that, I'll explain to them how the rest of the evening will go and what they will be providing us. One exercise is what we're calling the dotmocracy. And then the other one is a breakout group exercise. And then the third is that there will be a report back from each group's community leader. So the dotmocracy is going to be a 20-minute exercise where participants will move through a room of boards that will have a summary of key findings, and they can actually vote yay or nay on these findings as they browse on the through the board. And then at the end of the room, there will be a board that includes the goals that we're going to discuss today, and the like in big font, and then a list of strengths, opportunities, weaknesses, and threats that the town of Orangetown currently has in order to get to these goals. And then the community members will have the opportunity to vote on these on this SWOT board, and also add any other items that they think we should consider while trying to achieve these goals. After dotmocracy, which we assume would be about 20 minutes, we'll break out into sessions, breakout sessions with 5 themes. I've taken the liberty of assigning a facilitator to each theme. And those themes are themes, again, that emerged from a composite of all the 3 platforms. Urban design, public realm, and community facilities was, by far one of the most popular ones. Sustainability also was very popular. Reed Vreeland from my office will be facilitating that. Land use, something that Ashley is very knowledgeable about, will be facilitated by her. Transportation and mobility by Jason, and then housing by Nina. So for each of these breakout sessions, we will have a map as well as note-taking ability on each table. And we will have a set of leading questions for the facilitator, just 1 or 2 to begin the conversation. These leading questions will be questions that are directly taken from the findings of the community survey and the type of discussion that we're having here. So for example, should we include key housing examples from, say, Westchester or any other place that you think, and, say, well, okay, one of the things that we heard in housing is that people really do want to address senior housing as well as more affordable housing. So how do you think we can achieve that goal? Can we look at spaces here and also ways to do that? And so that would spark a more, a discussion in the breakout session. So we want to do 20 minutes of that and then report back with 2 minutes for each group. So there are 5 groups in total, 2 minutes for each group. And we want to request that it be community members who report back from each group. And then Ashley would be, just going over next steps. Ashley or Nina, either one of them, someone from AKRF can go over the next steps. Or, so, this is just a draft, so we can change the names and key responsibilities for. So Nina can go over next steps. And then, I've just kind of like provided a overview of what we will need and how we will be changing the setup of the room when we're there. So, at the entrance, and I'm going to request that Allison has a sign-up sheet at the entrance, and that we have AV capabilities because we want to do a very short presentation. And the initial setup would be that the chairs would be facing the screen, and that there would be easels with boards organized at the edges of the wall so people can walk and take dots and paste it on them. So this is more of like a quiet, just engaging with the board and adding dots. And then when we have the breakout setup, while people are doing the dotmocracy, the consultant team and the members from the town, we will organize chairs in 5 circles. Now, I don't recommend that we need chairs for every participant. It's usually the sort of thing that, people not only like to participate in one group, sometimes they also just like to go from group to group. So we want to give that opportunity, and maybe we could have 8 to 10 chairs per circle with a table in the middle that people can participate, that people can draw on or write on. But then there can be others who are standing. Not everybody needs to sit. And then, Allison, if I can request you to just let us know when there's 5 minutes remaining, so that every facilitator knows that we have to wrap up. We wrap up, and then at the front of the room, one person from each group summarizes the reports back on the key discussions in each group. So that's how we're hoping to, do both a breakout session as well as a, kind of like a dotmocracy. And the same thing if it is done online. We would have, for online, we would have different Zoom rooms for these discussions. And what we would be using, primarily this, that dotmocracy exercise there would be a bigger presentation in the Zoom, which I will provide. It'll be slightly longer than this one because it will have all the content of the boards that we'll produce, which would actually be, in the room. So instead of them having 20 minutes to do dotmocracy, where they are looking at the information and voting directly, we will kind of give a presentation of the information, and then they'll have about 10 minutes to do their voting. And then the breakout session would be in Zoom rooms with, again, 5 rooms on these topics.
So where are we when there, do we just go to the groups or we?
Yeah, so I think it would be good if we had each member of the committee attend a different group, and you could rotate around and we could switch every few minutes or so, but it would be good if you each were separated.
Yes, and I would actually like, I do notice 5 of you here, so all 5 of you to pick your favorite topic and, sort of self-select and help us facilitate that group.
I get land use, I know. And I have balloon making.
And Allison gets to be the timekeeper and, you know, the person directing people in, out, and sort of the person who's maintaining decorum.
We'll give her some muscle, we'll give Carmel, can do it. It's that line. Okay. Sounds like a plan.
Are there any other community events coming up where we could further advertise this, like we did at Pearl River Day?
Well, we do it at all our town board meetings. for what
Okay.
that is worth. The events, not really.
So if these dates are final, and Ashley, let me, you know, feel free, because if these dates are final, December 6th and December 7th, then we can go ahead and produce the flyer as we did for the previous community outreach. And I think what would be great is, since we already noticed that when the flyer goes out, people engage, that we can have multiple email blasts leading up to the event, online and in person. And I can suggest dates when the email blast should go out.
We can maybe reach out to like Rotary, whatever, reach out to some libraries and let them know. Unfortunately, I just think from everything I've learned over the 25 years, it's gonna be the same people involved are involved and the same who are.
Right.
But we'll try.
So my question is, what room do you think would be able to hold? Because the last time we discussed 100 people, or actually it was 50.
Yeah.
You'd mentioned about 50.
Yeah.
And we have 5 groups, so that's perfect. So if it's 50 people, what room do you think would hold that has AV capabilities and, you know, 50 chairs that we might be able,
Started in the courtroom one. The breakout sessions, we can spread out into the rotunda.
In the new courtroom. I think that we could set up and.
Oh, to use that one that night?
Yeah, I think I have it already set.
And if we need to, we can use the foyer.
so we'll have 5 tables there.
Yeah, we're being optimistic with 50, but anyway, we'll see.
Do you think, we were thinking about that. Do you think it would be better to move it to January after the holidays? Or keep the momentum that we've already
I think
started?
I've had it on the web, you know, people that have been
Yeah, right, to
involved, I've
change it
seen
down
that
might be
date
tricky,
for a
yeah.
long time now.
Yeah,
I think it'd be tricky to change it in. I mean, you know, I know it's around the holidays, but at least it's a Monday and a Tuesday, right?
yeah, it's a Monday and a
So,
Tuesday.
you know, busy, long Monday and Tuesdays.
So one more thing that I need, I just wanted to get a finalization on the dates. So we're good with 6th and 7th, that's clear. One more thing, if you could provide me, is the exact room and the address where people come for the, and what time will kind of open the doors for them. Do you think it should be 6:45? Just so I can include all of that information on the flyer itself, so there's no confusion as to where exactly they have to come, what time they can start pouring in. And great.
Yes,
So you can send me that in an email, Allison. That would be great. Thank you. Are there any COVID-related precautions or instructions that we want to send out to people attending in person?
Things that,
You just mask up if you're not vaccinated.
right, we're following basic, you know, if you're not vaccinated, you have to wear a mask, but we're not checking people's vaccine status.
Okay, so is it okay for us to? So, because we've, one of the other outreaches that we're doing, we were just asking people to show their, kind of Empire State status that they're vaccinated. But if you don't want to see their vaccination status, can we just include on the flyer that we request you be vaccinated and wear a mask for the duration of the public meeting?
You probably have to follow whatever protocols you normally follow at your town board meetings.
Right, so,
You say wear a mask even if you're vaccinated? Is that right?
yeah,
That's not our problem.
that's
not our problem.
Yeah, unless
our
something
protocol is
changes.
if you're not vaccinated, you wear a mask. But we're not checking.
Okay. if you're not vaccinated, wear a mask.
Right,
And it is posted throughout.
Yeah, it's posted on the
Yeah.
doors there.
On the homepage, under the coronavirus on the left.
And on the
Just
doors.
check,
On the
it's right
doors
there.
and stuff.
Ashley, Allison, would you do me a favor and just send me the link and thank you so much. You know, the other problem I've been having, every time I try to go to the town's website, it says some like security stuff has not been updated. So you may want to check with ID that the security certificate has not been updated. So it blocks it at my end. But it's weird. It just
That's every people from going on.
Right. So also in terms of next steps, another request I have is if we could get an approval on the report, say within a week's time, then at least a week before the community meeting, we could post it on the engagement platform. So, and if there is a date that we can have, then we'll include it on the flyer that's starting this date. The community findings from outreach up to this point will be posted. So you can take a look before you come to the next outreach.
Well, it's November 29th is the week for our outreach.
Right. So that is the Monday right after Thanksgiving, I think.
We should probably try to get it posted before Thanksgiving.
This report we're talking.
Yeah.
Like basically they want us to translate it.
Right.
Yeah, Thanksgiving. I think we should shoot for having it posted by next Wednesday.
The 24th.
Well, so we need a week to pick up any changes.
Oh.
So I think given the timeline right now, realistically, it might be easier to either we want to shoot for Wednesday before Thanksgiving, but just in case we don't have all feedback and a week of time just to pick up changes, because Thanksgiving, everyone's taking vacations and stuff. So we also need some time to pick up any changes. So if you could send us your changes and time, and then we'll take a week from then to post. So we'll let you know if we're able to do it on the Wednesday. Otherwise, we definitely want to get it online by the 29th. And we'll still say that it's a draft, because the final actually will become a part of the comprehensive plan itself. So we'll just remove the word confidential from there after it's reviewed by you. And one last question I had was, we're going to go over the goals now, but do you think that it makes sense for us to also include the finalized goals at the end of the community outreach report and mention that these have been informed by the findings from the outreach?
I'd rather have them as a standalone on the website. That way they're easier to find and they're not buried in the back.
Okay. Should we do both just to kind of reiterate that these aren't goals we came out with from thin air? And have them like at both places, goals and in the outreach? Up to you.
That's fine.
Okay.
Yeah, you're trying to link them. That's.
Yeah. I'm trying to look them. But I think in terms of getting, obviously this is a very large document. So if we want to get some feedback, having it as a shorter.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, people are not going to read,
We can add a blurb to the front of this for posting, where they came from. And I know we're running low on time. We want to spend a couple minutes going through this, or do you want to just email comments?
On this?
On the-
Or this?
this. The goals.
I don't know, so everybody can review it, just no comments? Yeah, okay, let me do that. We can email you, if that helps.
Yes, yeah, and I sent it over as a Word document, so if you always just use track changes or just send me emails with comments. Okay, and then, so we'll have the same goal of getting this posted at the same time as the report getting posted. So I guess comments by the end of the week would be great, or by Monday.
By Thursday or Friday would be great, actually, if we can.
Okay.
Just because next week is Thanksgiving and people are starting to take off starting end of Wednesday. So we want to make sure that we have it all finalized before 29th.
All right, so I think we've covered our deliverables and next steps. So anything else?
Nope.
Motion to close.
I second.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Taxi.
Thank you. I think this was very productive. Thank you for everything. And looking forward to meeting all of you on the 6th.
Yep.
All right.